Head coach Chris Winter brings another exciting season of Wartburg football. As a nationally preseason ranked number 9, also take the ARC crown once again. Winter enters his 5th season as head coach, closing out last season with a 10-2 overall record to secure the program's 3rd straight and 20th conference championship with a perfect 8-0 ARC record. The Knights are an auto bid to the NCAA playoffs, which was the 3rd straight 18th overall appearance in program history. Football begins its 2025 campaign at home against Monmouth on September 6th. Opening statement, Coach.
Yeah. So first of all, thanks everyone for showing up today and covering Wartburg football. Obviously, that's a big thing for our fans, for our players, and certainly in our efforts in recruiting as we keep moving forward. So appreciate everybody being here today. Obviously, like every year, the first thing that we're trying to do if we're going to have a successful team is to build a true team. So to me, focusing on connectivity within our team, not just being a bunch of guys that showed up here to play football, but a bunch of guys that are going to compete for each other day in and day out and have each other's backs. That's where it starts. And so we've been focusing a lot on that, along with the physical side of getting them ready to go out there and compete on Saturdays. I think we've got a team that is hungry, a team that has a little bit of a chip on their shoulder and feels like they have something to prove. It's probably the first year in maybe 3 or 4 years that we don't have a returning All-American, returning preseason All-American, that type of thing. But that doesn't mean we're not, still loaded with talent. And, I think we're more experienced than maybe people give us credit for right now. Last year we dealt with some injuries that allowed some other guys to have to step into bigger roles than maybe they were expecting. And now those guys are back and ready to roll. So I'm really excited about where our team's at. I think we've got a high level of talent, a good level of experience, and a team that's capable of doing some really special things. But we're also capable if we don't get ourselves ready to go and get a little bit complacent of falling off. And so I think they understand that. So I mean they're competing with a chip on their shoulder and, like I said, having something to prove. I think before I open up the questions, I'll give you a rundown on kind of where things are at with the roster right now, kind of how we're seeing things play out in camp. I'll start with the offensive side of the ball. Offensively, we feel like we've got maybe more team speed this year than we've had in a while, and that's exciting. I'll start off with our quarterback, who has pretty good speed, but Leo Dodd is a guy that got a ton of experience last year. Him and Carter Markham were splitting time, and has stepped up in a big way here as a leader in camp. Is just really looking confident with the way our offense runs. And so Leo's been doing a great job, I would say, right now. If we were to go out there and play a game today, he'd be the guy. There's a couple other guys, Josh Papish, Charlie Zimmerman, two guys that were freshmen for us last year. Josh was a guy that I talked about at this time last year as well, that was really developing and continues to do that. And then Charlie was our Scout Team Player of the Year on the offensive side last year and has had a great offseason. So that's where we're at. I think those are the top 3 right now at QB, and then there's some young guys that continue to develop. Running back, having a 1,000-yard rusher coming back in Dawson Rudd is a nice thing for sure, and he's certainly having a great camp. Got some good experience coming back too with Joey Anderson, a name you've heard before. Who'll be back as a senior this year and is feeling good, feeling healthy here in camp. Levi Pingle's another name that has kind of shown up on special teams in the past, that is a senior in that running back group. And then I don't have a North Scott quarterback this year. You might be surprised by that, but we do have a running back who's really come to the forefront. Dylan Marty is a guy who has stepped up, had a great offseason, really brings a different dynamic with his top end speed in the backfield, and has a chance to really be something back there as a good change of pace back as well. Carson Bruns had a nice camp, and then Aiden Skoda and Cam Manning are 2 freshmen just to kind of keep an eye on, that we think could push their way up there and find a way to make an impact on our team this year. Actually, Aiden's a local product from Crestwood High School in Cresco. Wide receivers, this is the area where I think we've got the most experience coming back. I know we lost Carter Henry and Drake George. You might be thinking, well, what do you mean by that? But last year, Jagger Schmidt, Dylan Swanstrom, and Justice Bachman, had to step up because, Drake missed half the season with the knee, and Carter was in and out of the lineup with a shoulder. And so those guys made some big time plays last year. And so it's nice to have 3 guys back that played an integral role in our offense. And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of dynamic and speed from those 3 guys. We also have some guys behind them. Cade Hughes is a senior who's been a steady guy for us, had a really nice camp. Caleb Eggsdahl is another very dynamic wideout that's going to get his chance to prove what he can do this year. And then a few other guys keep an eye on: Ty Gardner, Taylon Curry, Henrik Nimley, Titan Schmidt, and Alex Kerr. just some other young guys that are doing a nice job here in camp that may find a way to build a role. Our tight end spot, Matt Defoe coming back, a great weapon. You guys saw him kind of maybe rise to the top a little bit as the season went along last year and became a weapon for us at tight end, both blocking and receiving, and continues to evolve his confidence at that position. He came in as a quarterback when he first came to Wartburg and has now, worked his way fully into tight end and is doing a great job. Simon Ott, a local product here, Waverly kid that is doing a really nice job here in camp. I think it's going to have an impact on our offense at the tight end H spot. Matt Hilleman, Micah Holmberg, two guys that are having a nice camp. And Sam Heather is a freshman coming in from Ankeny Centennial and is a guy that I think is going to be on the field this year in some way, shape, or form, and has had a nice impact on our camp at that tight end spot. And then last but not least, you got to talk about the guys up front. If we're going to have a good football team, our offensive line's got to play a role in that. Certainly the way we've run the football the last few years has really set up our ability to be successful throwing the ball down the field, and so these guys are going to be a big part of this thing. Nathan Lorenzen and Cole Hutz are two guys that you've heard before that have been playing up front. Cole started out, last year, first year with us, transferring in from Bemidji State, and Nathan Lorenzen's been playing, for us since he's a freshman, finding some different roles and played some big playoff games. Drew Streb is a guy that stepped up late last year, was a freshman last year out of Iowa City, Regina. And, I think he's going to be a guy that we can really count on this year to be an every day, every down kind of guy. Braden Plotz is another name that, up front, that is a sophomore this year from Williamsburg that is going to step into a big role at tackle and has some tremendous attributes to be able to do that. Cole Mankey at center. And then Kellen Capogli at guard is another name to look at. Charlie Nix, Max Rossow, Brady Robinson, Andrew Rhodes, and then a freshman, Maverick Stapley. Are a group of guys there that all in that O-line group that I think have got some tremendous talent and upside, and just haven't had as many reps as we've seen in the past. But I think that offensive line group could be a strength of what we're going to do on offense. Just a matter of, like I said, getting those guys a little more experience. And then, in our special teams side, before I get to defense, we've got Jackson Hops coming back. He's been our punter for the last couple of years, an all-conference guy. He will now handle the place kicking as well with Kayla O'Neill graduating. So you're going to see a lot of Jackson out there in all the special teams. And, he's got a big leg, and we're excited to see what he can do. And then, make sure we mention our local product. Austin Serrata was our long snapper last year, was a honorable mention all-conference long snapper, and is doing a nice job here again in camp. And then Parker Spursfloggy is also doing a nice job for us there from O-line. And so those two guys will be kind of duking it out at that long snapper spot. Transition to the defense here quick and talk about them. So our D-line, I really think our front seven, okay, you've heard me say this probably for a number of years from now, but our front seven is going to be something again this year. They're going to be something to reckon with. And Jake Walker would be kind of one of the lead guys in that defensive line group that if we can keep him healthy, I just think he's got a chance to be, one of the best D-linemen in the country. And so we're excited about how Jake has developed. Connor McDonald's another name that you heard a lot last year, started at D-tackle for us. He's back and ready to roll. Owen Hatcher tore his ACL in camp last year, right at the beginning of the year last year. And he's back now as a fifth-year senior for us, so we're excited about the way he's been performing at end and think he can make an impact in there. Cam Stalzer's a name from Iowa Falls. That's a senior this year that had a big sack against Platteville out there in that playoff game. Late in the year really came on, and we're excited about his progress at end. Jack Drehos at D-tackle, Jack Heinberg at end, and then a few other guys, Aiden Maurer, Brady Peterson, Ethan Birding, kind of that'll be the mix of guys that you're going to see rotating in there up front and hopefully making a big impact. And like I said, I think there's a couple of those guys that are going to have a chance to be, an elite level player. Our linebacker crew, this is probably, I think, our strongest group on the defensive side of the ball. And, Keenan Tyler's a returning, all-region player and a guy that had a tremendous impact on our defense last year. He's going to slide in to play Mike this year, kind of making that Owen Grover transition back in the day when Owen went from Will to Mike in his senior year. Mac Watts is going to flip-flop with him and play the Will. And then, Mac obviously has had a tremendous career here at Wartburg. He's been playing, within our scheme since he's a freshman, and is going to have another big season for us there. And then Adam Link, had to pretty much start most of the season last year with his brother Nate having a few injury issues last year. And right now, Adam has really developed himself, and you might have a hard time telling between him and Nate in terms of, he put on about 10 to 15 pounds here in the offseason and is really looking good at our outside linebacker spot. So, and then Tyler Geyer is another name to keep an eye on. I mean, he has had an awesome camp. I've noticed Tyler flash a bunch, and I'm really excited about where he's at. A few other veteran guys, Sam Conway, Colin Snitker, Alex Cuck, all seniors in that linebacker group that are going to have special teams roles and maybe some package type roles that have done a nice job throughout their career and are going to get some opportunities. And then Zach Crawford, Seth Madden, Christian Pettinger, some other young guys that are making an impact out there and that we're seeing flash. So, like I said, I think that group's got a really good chance, to be dominant, to get back to having that linebacker crew that really controls the game for us. Our secondary, that's probably the one that on the outside people are thinking, okay, how's that going to go? You lose Parker Rochford after having him start for all these years and being a multiple-time All-American. Thane Alexander stepped in last year and became an All-Region safety. He's gone. Caleb Lamphere was a multiple-year starter at corner. Our one returner, Connor Grover, had a great year last year and continues to develop as a leader in that group. But I'm really excited about the talent in the DB group. It reminds me a little bit of when we were transitioning from 21 to 22, when we lost JoJo McNair and Eli Barrett, and some really good talent back there. And then in 22, we had, maybe one of the best defensive backfields in the country. And so I think this group's playing with a chip on their shoulder. They're excited to go out and prove what they're capable of. I already mentioned Connor as a leader in that group. Blake Jansen and Jason O'Boy are the two top safety candidates right now, and both those guys have played a number of snaps special teams wise in different packages and are certainly talented enough to be all conference or more caliber players on our defense. Sam Rose, the guy that stepped up at corner, again, a Waverly kid here that is having a tremendous camp that I'm really excited about. Jack Wilson, another Waverly kid who's having a great camp. He had an ACL last year. He cost him his season, and he's back and hungry and doing a great job. Ryan Doyle, a guy that has been in our two deep and playing on special teams, doing a great job. And then a few other guys keep an eye on. Corbin Bark, Ben Weimer transitioned from wide out to safety in the offseason. Kid from Decorah that I think has got a chance to make a big impact. Ty Lyon, Cam Stevens, Declan Fortuna, a few other names to keep an eye out for in that defensive back group. So, like I said, we don't have as much of the household names all coming back that you've heard of before, and the All-American preseasons and all that. But in that group of guys I just mentioned there, that we've got some extreme talent, some real speed and athleticism that I think is going to have a chance to really flash if we can get them ready to go. Obviously, that's on us coaches to make sure they're ready to do their job for 60 minutes on Saturdays, and we have a chance to do something special. So that's where our roster's at right now. Where we're at with kind of some of those positional battles, and I guess at this point I can open up to you guys for questions to go from there.
The AFCA has you number 9, but you have no preseason All-Americans. Are you flattered or frustrated by that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little. I would say more flattered. I think there's been seasons where when we get to this point where you don't have a preseason All-American and maybe don't have the household names, you see Wartburg kind of get shuffled to the back of the pack and maybe not get much credit for what we've accomplished. So I think we've made some strides in terms of people realizing this is a program that year in and year out can be nationally competitive. But at the same time, I think that's what I mean. There's a chip on the guys' shoulders because they know we've got guys in these groups that are capable of being that caliber of player. But hey, we got to go prove it, right? That's the thing. We can all sit here and talk about it, and we can look at numbers, and we can look at how they're doing. But in the end, potential is just potential until we reach it. It's proven, and that's what we got to find out. I think that's where we got to keep having that edge and that chip on the shoulder. And I kind of like that. I like the fact that there's not a lot of individual notoriety right now. I think that kind of, again, motivates the guys. It brings our team tighter together, and I'm looking forward to these guys getting a chance to prove what they're about here in a couple weeks.
With that, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. After you.
Yeah, well, with that, you got the coaches poll, and obviously you can't vote for yourself, but 3 other coaches didn't have you winning it. What'd you take from that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. I mean, the American Rivers Conference has been if you look at, it's a balanced conference, competitive. You look at our scores against Central and Co. the last couple of years, those games could have gone any which way. And right now we don't have, the household names and the names that everyone's heard of before. Obviously inside we know a little bit more about these guys, but on the outside people don't know quite as much about them yet. And so I think that that's a fair way that vote went, and it is going to be up for grabs. We know it's going to be a fight. Obviously the normal competitors of Central, Code, Dubuque, Wartburg, kind of up in that top, and now you got a team like Simpson, who's really obviously challenged us a lot in our homecoming game a year ago. They're making strides forward, and some other hungry teams out there. So it's just going to be a competitive league again, and we got to prove it. We got to earn it. At this point, we're not expecting anyone to give us anything, and so I think it's good. I think it's good for our guys to have that little bit of drive and motivation. Understand, it's not winning a championship, winning a college football game, let alone a championship, is hard to do, and to continue to do that year in and year out, you don't have time to relax. And I think these type of things are hopefully helping motivate our guys to keep that hunger and that drive.
You mentioned those units where you lost a lot to graduation, creating a lot of opportunities. Have you been able to turn that into a positive, knowing the fact that there's competition there and basically a rising tide lifts all boats?
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's been great. And that's one of the things, as I've been looking at, not to say we didn't do a great job last year, we didn't have guys that were motivated and getting after it and competing, but there's a little bit more of that. There's a little bit more, when you have some uncertainties in camp and there's not you don't have the Tucker Kinney and the Parker Rochford coming back, and you kind of know, okay, with those Nate Link, all those guys that were coming back last year, you kind of knew, okay, that spot's probably where it's at. Now it's kind of like, okay, there's a few more spots that might be up for grabs, and you're seeing that, I think, in the competitive nature, and it's bringing out the best, not only in the guys that are trying to earn those roles, but maybe in some of the guys that, again, probably do have a pretty strong idea that they've got a certain role, but at the same time, they know that there's people pushing them. And so, I would agree. We've noticed a little bit more of that edge in our practices, in our camp. I think it's been really good, and it's really helped raise the level of some of these guys who are going to step up and be the guys we're going to be counting on.
What was the biggest challenge you presented Leo Dodd entering this camp, and what you wanted him to see, like maybe take this team, make it his?
Yeah, for sure. I think for Leo, he's got such athleticism. He's got a different level of athleticism than maybe we've had in a while. Like Carter Markham brought some athleticism too, but Leo is just he's just a very smooth athlete back there. And he's very confident. There's a level of confidence about him that I like. And sometimes, when it comes to decision making, you think you can kind of make that play, and all of a sudden that can turn into, okay, maybe I shouldn't have made it. So I think, to me, it's his decision making. I've noticed like his ability to understand our offense. Maybe last year when he got in there, it was a little bit more like, all right, something's not there. I can kind of just roll out of here and just kind of use my feet, maybe run for it, but he's kind of working within the offense a little bit more right now, understands the concepts that Coach Wheeler's trying to get done. The ball's coming out on time. And then just his leadership. I think the guys have really bought into Leo, and I think that's a big thing too. You got to have a group of guys that really believes in your quarterback, and if you don't have that, it's going to be hard to be successful. And he's done a great job of I think, building that confidence in the people around him. And so, that's a compliment to Leo. I think, like I said, he's always had that confidence and kind of that little bit of swagger about him, but he's turning that into some discipline along with it, and really doing a good job with his decision-making and playmaking ability.
Do you have a little, go ahead.
Would you have to say you had to kind of shake some of the 8-player quarterbacks?
Yeah, that's part. 8-man is a wide open game. It's scoring up and down the field, and so just learning, having a few more people on the field and all that. Obviously, he's played here enough games and learned that. But I do think that is part of it. It's just a little bit different game, and maybe some of those throws you could make in high school, that changes in college. That DB's a little quicker out of his break. He's a little more disciplined with his eyes, and you got to make sure we're making good decisions. And so that's, again, the confidence level in Leo, his decision-making, his playmaking ability. We still want him, when things do break down, that's one of his best attributes, to be able to make some plays on the move. But also, let's make sure we end that play with the ball. And I think he's gotten to the point where he can really handle that. And so he can still make those dynamic plays along with making good decisions with them. So we're like I said, not having a bunch of turnovers out there.
One more QB question. Is it a little deja vu? I mean, Josh Papish has that same sort of buzz coming in that Niall had, and then he ended up having to wait a little longer than some thought because there was a Dodd playing. Is it a little deja vu? It just feels like it's repeating itself.
It is a little bit like that. I think it's also, you're talking about Noah Dodd back in the day, and Noah, I think Leo and Noah have had a similar path too. You know, Noah was a great quarterback back when he was going through Wartburg, and he was always capable, and he just kind of stuck by Matt Station, you know. And so by his senior year, he was just so motivated. There was just like a different level of focus and confidence about him to go out there and grab that spot. And that's kind of what I'm seeing from Leo right now. And at the same time, like you're saying, it is giving us a chance to continue to develop Josh and not have to shove him up into a situation where, you know, maybe he's not quite ready yet or whatever. And we can bring him along at a good pace where he's going to be developed and ready to go. And I do feel confident right now if Josh was going to be our starting quarterback, he'd get the job done. He's very bright, very smart, a little different style of quarterback than Leo. He's going to be more like your Niall McLaughlin, super strong arm, can really spin it, you know, very accurate, good decision maker, all those things. Maybe just not quite as mobile as a guy like Leo who kind of adds that next dynamic. And so, that's but it's nice to have, you know, a couple guys like that can get it done. And then, like I said, there's some young talent too in that room that, you know, I'm just really excited about that group. Coach Wheeler's done a nice job getting ready to go, and hard to win championships if you don't have good quarterback play, and we're going to be in good hands for a while.
A little bit bigger picture of a question. Your roster is right around 200 kids now, and looking at it year to year, your retention rate is very, very high. How do you go about making sure every member of this roster is valued and has a role and has some sort of value to the team, and knowing the fact that that's hard to do with that many kids?
No doubt, no doubt. I think it starts with your upperclassmen buying into the idea that every guy on the team has a role and matters. Sometimes you get to the point when a guy gets to be a senior that they feel like they're entitled to, okay, I've put in the work and now these guys are here to serve me. And to me, we got to flip that on its head. And I think our seniors have done a really nice job of that. Like, no, don't make those guys serve you. Welcome them in. Let's serve those guys. Hey, if something needs to be done, we either say, okay, the first year guys can do it, or no, the older guys can take care of it. And then I think then you kind of train those younger guys to understand kind of that humble approach, and they feel more welcome. They feel like they're more part of the team. So even though maybe they're not getting as many opportunities yet, they're willing to hang in there because they're treated with respect, just like the guy that's, you know, the All-American. You know, we're not going to treat, you know, the first-year player any different than the All-American player. That's the way it should be. And so I think that starts with your senior leadership really buying into that. They've done a nice job of that. From just getting guys opportunity standpoint, this year we kind of went to a little different approach in camp and did some split practices early on where we tried to make sure that, you know, we were getting a number of reps for every guy out there and give them a chance to kind of show what they can do. And that also helps us as coaches to evaluate our first-year talent. You know, if you don't get them enough opportunities to show what they can do, you don't know which ones are ready. And so I think that was really, really not good for us, and it was good for the players to have those opportunities to just kind of get thrown in there right away and go out and compete and run out there and not maybe only get 5 reps in a practice, but get 20 reps in a practice or whatever it might be. And so that's been really good too. And then I think, like I said, it just goes back to what I mentioned. One of our main focuses in camp is always it's about connectivity. So team, right? Team. Like everyone wants to develop team, but it really comes down to having your guys buy into, okay, we got to be connected. We need to understand that everybody's going to have a role on this team, and what every guy does matters. And so even if you're a first-year guy who just showed up and you may not be getting a ton of reps, what you're doing on that day matters. Okay, how you handle yourself in practice, away from practice, on campus, all the things that you do have an impact on our team. And so, again, just trying to create that culture, you know, within our team. And I think then everyone knows, okay, hey, what I do does matter, and coach is going to see that. And if I'm doing the right things, that's going to get me opportunities. And I think also success. You know, I've got a few different things here, but you know, when you're winning and you're having success, guys are a lot more willing to wait their time than they are if, okay, I'm behind a guy and we're not having a lot of fun, we're not winning many games. Well, yeah, it's hard to sit around then. But I think some of these guys are like, okay, if I hang in there, I can kind of see what it looks like. Look at these older guys and what they're getting a chance to do and what they've experienced in their 4 years. Hey, I might be a first-year player, second-year player right now, and I'm not quite there yet, but if I hang in there, I got a chance to be one of those guys that's making a big impact on a championship-level team. So all those factors combined. But I think it still goes back to having senior leaders that are willing to bring in the young guys and accept them and treat them with great respect. That's a huge part of making everyone feel like they're part of what we're doing.
And you would say that's happened in the last few seasons.
Exactly. That started, I really think, you know, at 21, my first season as head coach I think I've said this before, but coming off of a COVID year where you couldn't have a team, right? You couldn't even be together. Mm-hmm. that was one of my biggest lessons in coaching was in 2021. We were just kind of focused on, hey, let's get to camp, let's get back to playing football, it's gonna be fun, here we go, let's get the plays right, let's get in shape, and we didn't focus as much on building the team. And you know, not to say our 21 team was not a good team or whatever, but we didn't have that same connectivity at that time. And then from 21 to 22, that was one of our main focuses. And obviously, we all know what happened in 22. And then those guys kind of learned, okay, that's how it goes. And now, year in and year out, our seniors have kind of carried that on. And so, yeah, that's been a thing that's happened over time. And I think if you continue to treat people like that, then when you become the upperclassman, you know how that made you feel and how that helped you adjust to college and feeling like you were part of the team. And so you want to pay that forward. So, yeah, for sure.
And I didn't count this, but I saw reported some of the Iowa boys per D3 team in the state, or some of the three, and it was like 151 Iowa boys. Why is that such an important thing for you to recruit through backyard, and how does that help with maybe making area people, not just Iowa fans, Iowa State, but Wartburg fans?
Right, well, first of all, I think it helps with the connectivity of your team, which I keep talking about. When you get a bunch of guys that come from a background where that's been a value that they probably had when they grew up in high school, that helps when they get here to understand, okay, that's still important. Obviously, the other thing is there's great football in Iowa. I mean, there's so many good football players in Iowa. I mean, and just to I think it's like maybe that approach that they play with. If you look at Iowa high school football, it's kind of a blue collar, physical, that type of game around here. And hopefully that's the type of brand of football we're trying to put on the field too. So I think those guys really fit in with what we're looking to do. It doesn't mean that we don't have guys outside of Iowa that are really impactful that we love having around here, but I think we can have a good core of kids that are local. It helps the guys that maybe come from outside the local area adjust. They get taken in, they get to know those guys that are here. They feel like, okay, I'm away from home, but now this is kind of like my new home, and I got some friends here that maybe, some of our guys might go back at Thanksgiving to go eat dinner with that local family because they can't make it home, or just those little things that I think also really then helps keep some of the guys that come from a distance around here because they feel that same vibe of a group that's connected together. But yeah, I mean, that Iowa base is something that we're going to continue to battle for. We want to have the best players in Iowa coming to Wartburg College, and that's how this whole foundation's been built since Coach Willis started, and we're trying to continue to maintain that, and hopefully that's something that we'll be able to do because it's worked. So yeah.
I know you saw them in the playoffs last year. Are you going to keep your scrimmage going with Platteville?
Yeah, we are. Yep. So actually, that'll be Thursday of this week. We'll crank that one up. Platteville, we've got great respect for Platteville. I think we've got a great relationship. Dan Bowder is a Wartburg alum. That's their defensive coordinator and has done a tremendous job with that defense. Obviously, that's a great opponent for us to play. You want to find out where you're at. You play a team like Platteville, in your scrimmage, and you find out where your team's at. They're a real nationally competitive program that's really starting to make some noise in that Wisconsin league, and that's a great scrimmage for us that we want to continue to have. And hey, if we cross paths in the playoffs again, that's okay. Obviously, we know each other well, and that's all right. Hopefully we do, and that'll be good for both of us, and those are fun games.
You got new digs out here.
Oh yeah. Hey, we should probably talk about the new turf. I mean, that thing's looking sharp out there. I didn't realize how not green our previous field was until I saw this one. That's what green looks like and what orange looks like, So it pops out there. The guys are excited. We can't wait for September 6th to open up with Monmouth out there. First home game with the new turf, new scoreboard. Under the lights, it's gonna be something. So yeah, the facility out here. Hopefully we'll have a huge crowd out there to support us, and should be a fun time competing in the new facility. Anything else?
Any more questions, Coach?
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys. Thanks again for coming. Get some of these players in here. They can